There is a class of people nobody talks about, honestly. Not the poor, not the rich. The middle, the people who are educated enough to understand the game, but not positioned well enough to win it. The people who work hard enough to survive, but not strategically enough to escape. The middle class is not a financial position. It is a trap. A well-designed, comfortable, socially approved trap with a mortgage, a car payment, a pension plan, and just enough stability to make you forget you're inside it. Machiavelli never wrote specifically about the middle class, but he wrote extensively about the men who remain trapped in the middle of power structures, too comfortable to revolt, too constrained to rise. And what he observed about those men applies with devastating accuracy to the financial middle class of today. He identified 10 specific behaviors that kept them exactly where they were, and 10 rules for the ones willing to break out. This is those 10 rules. Rule 1. Stop trading time, start building ownership. The middle class was built on one transaction. Time for money. Show up, work hours, collect payment. It is the oldest and most limiting financial arrangement in human history. And it is the foundation of the trap. Here's the mathematical problem with trading time for money. Time is finite. You have a fixed number of hours, which means you have a fixed ceiling on income. No matter how hard you work, no matter how skilled you become, you cannot work more than 24 hours in a day. The ceiling is built into the transaction. Machiavelli observed that the men who accumulated real power were never the hardest workers in the room. They were the ones who owned something. Land, trade routes, information networks, systems. Something that generated value, whether they were present or not. That is the first rule. Stop asking how many hours you can work. Start asking what you can own. Ownership does not require starting a business tomorrow. It begins with a shift in how you see your work. Are you building something or just completing tasks? Are you creating assets or just collecting paychecks? The moment you start thinking like an owner, even inside someone else's company, the ceiling begins to crack. Rule 2. Understand that comfort is the enemy wearing a friendly face. The middle class is not held in place by poverty. It is held in place by comfort. And comfort is the most sophisticated trap ever designed, because it doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like a reward. The middle class has just enough to pay the bills, just enough to take one vacation a year, just enough to feel like things are okay. And that just enough is precisely calibrated to eliminate urgency, because urgency is what drives change, and without urgency, nothing changes. Machiavelli wrote that men in comfortable positions rarely take the actions required to improve those positions, not because they are lazy, because the discomfort required to change is greater than the discomfort of staying. The second rule forces an honest question. Are you comfortable enough to stop moving? Because if the answer is yes, comfort is already doing its job. The escape from comfort is not manufactured suffering, it is manufactured urgency. You have to make the cost of staying feel more real than the cost of changing. Write down what staying looks like in 10 years. The same job, the same ceiling, the same just enough. Now ask if that is acceptable. If the answer is no, use that discomfort as fuel before comfort takes it away again. Rule 3. Learn to sell or remain invisible. The middle class has a deeply uncomfortable relationship with selling. It has been conditioned to see selling as beneath it, as pushy, as dishonest, as something other people do. But here's the reality Machiavelli understood completely. Value that cannot communicate itself does not exist in the marketplace. You can be the most skilled person in your field, the most knowledgeable, the most capable. And if you cannot sell that value, you will be perpetually out-earned by people who are less capable but more visible. Selling is not manipulation. Selling is communication. It is the ability to make someone understand clearly, compellingly, and confidently why the value you offer is worth the price you're asking. That skill, applied to your career, your business, your personal brand, is worth more than any degree ever printed. The third rule is direct. Learn to sell, not aggressively, not manipulatively. Learn to articulate your value so clearly that the right people cannot ignore you. Because the middle class is full of talented people who are waiting to be discovered, and the wealthy are full of people who stopped waiting and started selling. Rule 4. Stop explaining your moves to people who aren't moving. The middle class has a social contract that most people never consciously agreed to. Stay close to the group. Don't move too fast. Don't make others uncomfortable with your ambition. And if you do decide to move, make sure you explain yourself thoroughly until everyone is comfortable with your decision. Machiavelli had no patience for this dynamic. He observed that the men who changed their position did so quietly and quickly. They did not seek consensus. They did not wait for approval. They did not explain themselves until the move was already complete. Because explanation invites objection, and objection invites delay. And delay, in a world where timing is everything, is often fatal. The fourth rule is this. Your moves are not a committee decision. The people in your life who have not escaped the middle class do not have the map you need. They have the map of where they are, which is exactly where you're trying to leave. Respect them. Love them. but stop seeking their approval for a journey they haven't taken. Explain after, when the result speaks for itself, when the vault is full, when the position is locked. Until then, move in silence. Rule 5. Build a second income before you need one. The middle class lives on one rope, one job, one income stream, one employer's decision standing between financial stability and complete collapse. This is not a criticism. It is a design flaw. And it is one the middle class was never taught to fix, because the system that trained most people never mentioned that one rope was dangerous. It mentioned job security. It mentioned loyalty. It mentioned climbing the ladder. But one ladder is still one ladder, and ladders get pulled away. Machiavelli understood redundancy as a principle of power. The ruler who depended on a single alliance was vulnerable. The ruler with multiple alliances could lose one and remain standing. The 5th rule applies this directly. Build a second income stream. Not because your first one is failing, but because dependence on one source is a structural weakness. The second income does not need to be large. It needs to exist. A small freelance project, a digital product, a skill monetized on weekends, something that proves to your nervous system that your financial survival does not depend on one person's decision. That shift in psychology alone is worth more than the income itself. Rule 6. Invest in assets that grow while you sleep. The middle class saves money. The wealthy buy assets. That difference, compounded over 20 years, produces 2 completely different lives. Saving money is not a wealth strategy. It is a preservation strategy. And in an inflationary world, preservation alone means slow, invisible loss. Assets are different. Assets grow. Stocks, index funds, real estate, a business, intellectual property. These are things that produce value beyond the moment you acquire them. Machiavelli called this the principle of the working soldier. The general who deploys his army effectively does not need to fight every battle personally. His deployed forces work while he strategizes the next move. Assets are deployed forces. The 6th rule is a commitment. Every month, before comfort spends it a portion of what you earn, gets converted from currency into asset. Something that works, something that grows, something that fights for your financial future, even when you are not in the room. Rule 7. Master one skill completely before adding another. The middle class is full of people who know a little about many things, and very little about anything specifically. This is not their fault. The education system rewards breadth, exposure to many subjects, surface-level competency across wide territory. But the market does not pay for breadth. The market pays for depth. The person who can do one thing better than almost anyone else has a financial advantage that no generalist can touch. Machiavelli observed this in the men around him. The ones who rose were not the most educated, they were the most precise. One skill, mastered completely, applied with confidence, communicated clearly. That combination created opportunity that no broad education ever matched. The 7th rule is a discipline. Identify the one skill that creates the most value in your field, the skill the market pays most for, the skill that is hardest to replace, and spend the next 12 months making yourself undeniable at it. Not good, undeniable, because undeniable people do not stay in the middle class. The market pulls them out. Rule 8. Change your environment before you try to change yourself. Most self-improvement advice focuses on the individual. Change your mindset, change your habits, change your discipline, and that advice is not wrong. But it is incomplete, because human beings are not isolated systems. We are profoundly shaped by our environment, the people around us, the conversations we hear daily, the ambitions, or lack of them, that surround us. The standard of what is considered normal in the world we physically inhabit. Machiavelli understood this at the level of political strategy. He wrote that a prince placed in a weak court would eventually adopt the weakness of his surroundings, regardless of his original strength. Environment shapes behavior, always. The 8th rule acknowledges this reality. You do not need to abandon everyone you love, but you must deliberately add people to your life who are operating at the level you are trying to reach. Read what they read. Go where they go. Listen to how they think about problems, because the standard of what is possible is set by the people you spend the most time with. Change the room, and the person in the room begins to change automatically. Rule 9. Treat your financial education as a non-negotiable expense. Nobody sends an army into battle without intelligence. Nobody enters a negotiation without understanding the terms. Nobody builds a structure without first understanding the materials. Except almost everyone enters the financial system without any meaningful education about how it works. The middle class was not taught finance. It was taught compliance, how to earn within the system, how to pay taxes within the system, how to consume within the system, but not how the system itself generates and distributes wealth. That knowledge was never part of the curriculum. Machiavelli believed that ignorance was not innocent. He wrote that the man who does not understand the forces acting upon him is controlled by those forces. The 9th rule is a commitment. Spend money on financial education every single year. Books, courses, mentors, conferences. Whatever gets you closer to understanding how money actually moves. This is not an expense. It is the highest return investment available, because financial knowledge is not depleted by use. It compounds. Every new understanding builds on the last. And the person who invests consistently in this knowledge sees the machine clearly and begins to operate it instead of being operated by it. Rule 10. Decide that escaping is not optional. 9 rules. All of them practical. All of them actionable. But none of them work. Without the 10th, the middle class is full of people who know what to do. They have read the books. They have watched the videos. They have understood the principles intellectually. And they are still exactly where they were 3 years ago. Not because the knowledge failed them, because the decision was never truly made. Machiavelli was unambiguous about this. He wrote that fortune presents her opportunities briefly, and the man who waits for certainty will find that fortune has already moved to the man who moved first. The 10th rule is the only one that activates all the others. Decide. Not that you would like to escape. Not that you are trying to escape. Not that you hope to escape someday. Decide that escaping is not optional. That the middle is not your destination. That comfort is not your ceiling. That the vault was always meant to be yours. 10 rules, all of them available to you right now. The only question is which door you walk through today.